I married Jacob out of necessity, not love. Life can force you into decisions that leave your heart gasping for air, and that was my reality. My first marriage had ended in ruins, betrayal, debt, and loneliness. When Jacob came along offering stability and kindness, I accepted, even though my heart remained untouched. What I didn't foresee was how his son, Ethan, would unravel me in ways I couldn't control. Ethan was everything Jacob wasn't. Where Jacob was distant, Ethan was attentive. Where Jacob overlooked me, Ethan seemed to truly see me. He was handsome in a way that made women turn their heads, a strong jawline, piercing eyes, and a quiet confidence that drew people in. But it was his kindness that pulled me closer. At first, I told myself it was natural to appreciate him. After all, he was my stepson. But the lines blurred in ways that frightened me. It started subtly. Ethan would linger in the kitchen after dinner, helping me wash dishes while Jacob busied himself with his phone. We'd talk about books, music, life, conversations that felt more personal than they should have. One evening, as I reached for a glass on the top shelf, Ethan stepped behind me, his hand brushing against mine as he took the glass down for me. The brief contact sent a shiver through me, and I stepped away quickly, my heart pounding. "Thanks," I murmured, avoiding his eyes. He hesitated, his gaze lingering on me. "Anytime," he said, his voice soft but heavy with something unspoken. The tension grew, subtle but undeniable. One rainy afternoon, Jacob was working late, and Ethan came home drenched from football practice. He peeled off his jacket, his damp shirt clinging to his chest. I tried not to look, but he noticed, a flicker of awareness passing between us. "You're staring," he said, a teasing smile playing on his lips. I flushed. I wasn't. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You were." The air between us felt charged, the rain outside only amplifying the intimacy of the moment. I turned away, pretending to busy myself with the laundry. "Go change before you catch a cold," I said, my voice trembling. As the weeks passed, the boundaries between us grew thinner. One night, we found ourselves alone in the living room during a thunderstorm. The power went out, and I lit a candle, the flickering light casting shadows on his face. We sat close, the sound of rain filling the silence. He looked at me then, his eyes searching mine. "Do you ever feel like life puts you in impossible situations?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. I knew what he was asking. My breath caught, and I looked away. "Ethan, don't." He leaned forward slightly, his voice even softer. "I can't help how I feel." The words hung between us, heavy and dangerous. I wanted to give in, to let myself feel something real, something I hadn't felt in years, but I couldn't. I stood abruptly, putting distance between us. "This is wrong," I said, my voice trembling. "Whatever you think this is, it has to stop." He looked at me, pain and longing written across his face. "It's not just me, is it? You feel it too." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I turned and walked away, leaving him in the dim light of the candle. But the universe seemed intent on testing me. Girls began flocking to Ethan, their laughter and flirtation filling the house. One girl, Chloe, seemed particularly taken with him. Watching her drape herself over him ignited a jealousy I couldn't admit to. I hated myself for feeling it, but I couldn't stop. Every time I saw them together, it was like a knife twisting in my chest. The breaking point came one evening when I found him alone in the garden. He looked up as I approached, his eyes reflecting the torment I felt. Without thinking, I reached for his hand, but then I stopped, my fingers hovering over his. The moment stretched between us, a heartbeat away from disaster. "We can't do this," I said finally, my voice breaking. "You know that, right?" He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "I know, but that doesn't change how I feel." Tears welled up in my eyes. "You have to forget this, Ethan. Forget me." Is that what you want? He asked, his voice raw. It doesn't matter what I want, I said, stepping back. What matters is what's right. That night, I called him into the living room. Jacob was already asleep, oblivious to the storm brewing under his roof. Ethan sat across from me, his posture tense. I took a deep breath, gathering the strength to do what I knew I had to. Ethan, we have to end this, I said. Whatever, it can't happen. I'm your stepmother and you're my stepson. This is wrong, and we both know it. He looked at me, his eyes filled with pain. I never wanted this to happen. I didn't mean to feel this way. I know, I said, my voice softening. But we have to stop before we destroy everything. You're young, Ethan. You'll meet someone who can love you the way you deserve. But that can't be me. Silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of the rain outside. Finally, he nodded. I understand. As he stood to leave, he hesitated, looking back at me one last time. I'll never forget you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. And I'll never forget you, I replied, tears streaming down my face. But this is goodbye. He walked away, and with him went a piece of my heart. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty room, feeling the weight of what I'd lost and what I'd saved. Moral. Sometimes love alone cannot bridge the gap between what we feel and what is right. While love is a powerful and beautiful emotion, it does not always grant permission to disregard boundaries, principles, or the well-being of others. True love is not selfish. It thrives on respect, understanding, and sacrifice. It seeks to uplift, not to harm, and often requires hard choices that may be painful in the moment but preserve the integrity of all involved. In life, we often encounter desires that feel overwhelming, temptations that seem to promise happiness or fulfillment. Yet, the true test of character lies in our ability to discern when pursuing such desires would lead to harm or compromise the values we hold dear. Sometimes, the most profound act of love is stepping back and allowing what is right to prevail, even when every fiber of our being wants to act otherwise. Resisting temptation is not a sign of weakness, but of incredible strength. It takes courage to choose the harder path, to prioritize integrity over instant gratification, and to consider the broader consequences of our actions. By walking away from situations that could cause harm, we demonstrate respect for ourselves and for others, ensuring that our choices align with the greater good. In the end, love that is true and pure does not demand selfishness or reckless abandon. Instead, it flourishes in the light of selflessness, wisdom, and moral clarity. Choosing what is right, even when it breaks your heart, is a testament to the depth of your love, not just for others, but for the values that guide your life.